Welcome to this painting tutorial. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to show you how I painted my Changeling for my Chaos Demons army. And I've been looking forward to painting this model because I think it's pretty cool. At first glance this model looks like a pretty easy color scheme, but this turned out to be a fairly long video. And it uses a bunch of different colors, especially on the staff. And even though the color scheme looks a little bit monochromatic, it's a lot of blues. I did end up using a lot of colors. You can use this color scheme to paint any other Tzeentch models that you like, and also feel free to change the colors if you need to. I'm going to start by priming the model in gray. For that I use Surface Primer Gray from Vallejo, and this is through an airbrush, and you could use any primer that you like. I would suggest using white or a very light gray. I'm going to start by giving the whole model a base coat of Caledor Sky. This is the bluest blue, or the truest blue of the range, the most saturated, and I'm going to use a large brush to quickly apply a thin layer around the model. Try to aim for all of the robe and try to avoid all of the places that are going to be white or different colors, so that you don't make it harder for yourself once you try to use other colors on top of it. Once it's dry, make sure to give it a second coat just to make sure the color is even. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and use Drakenhof Nightshade, and this is going to be a wash over the whole robe. Try to not use too much of it because it's going to pull a lot on the bottom area of the robe. Just make sure that it gets into the crevices and all of the cracks and give you this shading effect around the robe. It's gonna be a little bit patchy and uneven on bigger areas, but that's fine. Just make sure that all of the places that are supposed to be in shadow get a little bit of this wash. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and use Caledor Sky again, and I'm going to clean up all of the open places in the robe, just leaving the shadows on the deepest recesses of the robe. And this is just a cleanup, just bringing back the color and leaving a little bit of the older color towards the shadows. And try to select all of the folds that are protruding from the miniature and trying to pick those up. And this is most of the area, just trying to pick around 90% of the color of the miniature, and just leaving a little bit of that very deep shadow on the recesses. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and use Teclis Blue. And these colors are a little bit more watered down than normal, and this is because it's better to do multiple coats instead of just one. So I'm going over it a couple times, maybe 3 times I think, and picking up the raised areas of these folds. And this time it's about half of the area that we highlighted on the last step. And this is just a very nice highlight color for the blues. Next I'm going to use Lothern Blue, and with this color is going to be the extreme highlight, or the edge highlight on the most sharpest edges of the robe, and trying to pick up all of these very sharp places and very brightest spots on the robe. And this is a pretty simple step. Just go around the miniature and try to pick those up. There's going to be some areas that have texture. You can just ignore those and paint over them as if they're not there. And try to not let any paint just pull on them, but try to avoid them. And once you paint them, it's going to be fixed. Here I'm trying to blend these two colors with Lothern Blue and Caledor Sky. Just putting a little bit of this color on top and a little bit on the bottom, and very quickly just dragging up and down until you find a good transition of color that you like. If you don't want to do this, you can just paint it just one plain color if you want. But this is a little bit of an advanced kind of technique, trying to blend these two colors. You just need to move quickly, apply a little bit of it on the top, a little bit of the bottom on the bottom, and then move them, drag them up and down. Here I'm using XV88, and with this I'm going to paint all of the trimmings around the robe and all of the little details that look like gold but they're actually not. It looks like a non-metallic metal effect, and for that I'm going to use this XV88. It's a very nice yellowish brown color, and I'm going to use this as a base coat for working that effect. Once that's done, I'm going to move ahead and use Rhinox hide, and with this color I'm going to paint the staff and pretty much the grip and all of the places that are not going to be gold or any other color. This is just the base color of the staff, and we're going to just move on ahead and do it. It doesn't have to be now, but I chose to do it now. Next, I'm going to use Agrax Airshade, and that's why I did it, because I wanted to shade them both at the same time. And I'm using this color to shade all of the trims on the surroundings of the robe and also the staff. It's okay to let this wash line the edges between the brown and the blue. This is going to create a very nice lining effect that is going to give more contrast to the model. And just if it goes into the crevices, just let it go, let it flow into them, that's fine. Next, I'm going to use Zamesi Desert, and with this color I'm going to give a highlight to all of these ochre areas, and just trying to pick up the places that are most exposed to light and try to leave a little bit of the previous color with Agrax Airshade wash to create very deep shadows and give this variation of color that looks pretty good. You don't really need to worry a lot about blending these two colors. We need a very stark contrast between those two colors to give that kind of a metallic, non-metallic metal effect. To finish it up, these places I'm going to edge highlight them with Screaming Skull, and this is going to complete the effect, and I think it looks pretty good in my opinion. And this step you have to be very careful and use a very fine brush so that you can pick up those edges and leave a little bit of those colors, two colors in the middle, and try to pick both edges of these like kind of ribbons that are on the edges of the robe. Next, I'm going to use Celestra Gray, and with this color I'm going to base coat all of the limbs, all of the skin, the parchment, and the flames. And this is going to be a fairly easy step. Celestra Gray covers very well, but be super careful not to paint on these areas that we already painted, because it would be a shame to have to do it again. So just be careful and base coat them all. Next, I'm going to use Gilliman Blue, and with this color I'm just going to shade the parchment and the skin of this model. I'm going to try to be a little bit heavy with the application of this Gilliman Blue shade, and I'm going to use it as a wash. And this is an easier way to do it, instead of using a very dark base and then trying to highlight it all the way to white. So just apply it liberally on these places, trying to not let it pull into other places. Just keep it into these areas that we want to be glazed over. Here I'm using Fenrisian Gray as the first cleaning step on the skin of this model, and trying to pick up most of the area, just leaving a little bit of the shaded color behind on the recess, on the deepest recesses, on the muscles and stuff. This is only going to be a highlight for the skin. The parchment is going to have a slightly different treatment, but the skin is going to have a bunch of different highlights. Next, I'm going to use Blue Horror, and this is a pretty cool color. I like it a lot. And this is going to be a second highlight, leaving a little bit of the Fenrisian Gray behind. But trying to pick up most of the most exposed parts on the muscles of the arms and most of the skin, of course. And just trying to leave a little bit of those two colors behind, and pretty much picking up most of the area. Like so. Once that's done, this is going to be the last step on the skin, is you just use plain white. I'm using model color white from Vallejo, and I'm going to edge highlight the most exposed parts of the muscles on the arms. Just creating lines here and there where you see the sharpest edges on these areas. This is pretty similar to the way I painted the skin on the Sangors, and that really helped me out to figure out how to do this, and I think it works very well. Next, I'm going to move on to the parchment, and for this I'm using Celestra Grey. And pretty much the same as we did with the ochre, I'm going to just pick up the most raised areas of the parchment and leave a little bit of the shaded color behind on the recesses and on the places that are supposed to be in shadow. This is going to give it a little bit more three-dimensional effect, and just try to pick those areas that the light hits. Once that's done, I'm going to give them an edge highlight with Ulthuan Grey, and I'm going to try to follow all of the folds and tears around the parchment, just to give them a little bit more like a paper kind of effect. On these edge highlights, you need to use I'm using a fine detail brush, or I think it's a small layer brush, and this is perfectly fine. The tip is very good. And you can use a little bit of drying retarder if you want your paint to stay wet for longer, and that you can edge highlight for longer. For this model I didn't use any drying retarders. I used just water, and it worked fine. Here I'm using Coelia Greenshade, and with this color I'm shading all of the places that are going to be this greenish blue flame around the model. This is only on the base of the model and on one of the hands of the Changeling. It's okay to go a little bit heavy on the deepest recesses of the flames. Once that's done, I'm going to use Gauss Blaster Green, and I'm using a lot of these edge paints on this model. They look pretty good. They give a very ghostly appearance to the model when you apply them as normal paints instead of just edge highlights. And here I'm picking most of the area of the flames to bring them back to a very ghostly green kind of energy color. To finish up the flames, I'm going to pick up only the most raised parts of the flames and all of the tips of the flames with just the plain white. And here I'm using Vallejo Model Color White with a small detail brush, and just picking these areas to give them a little bit of more highlight and make them look a little bit more fiery. Once that's done, I'm going to move ahead and use Screamer Pink, and with this color I'm going to paint the belt around the waist of this model real quickly. Make sure to use the thin colors. All of the colors are thinned down, some more than others, but pretty much never use colors straight from the pot, as I repeat almost on every single video that I make. Here I'm using Leadbelcher, and with this color I'm going to pick up all of the details that are going to be silver. There's not too many, just a little chains on the back here and a little bit of like a bead chain on the side as well. Once it's done, I'm going to use Nuln oil, and with this color I'm going to shade both of the areas that I just painted, the Screamer Pink and the Leadbelcher. Be very careful not to paint on other places that are not these two colors that I just painted, and it's okay that it touches the edges of these colors to give that lining effect that separates both colors from the background. Next I'm going to use Fulgrim Pink, and this is going to be a highlight to the rope that it's on the waist of this model, and just try to pick all of the individual kind of bumps of this rope. Once that's done, I'm going to use Stormhost Silver, and with this color I'm going to give the silver areas a highlight. And this is just picking up the most raised parts and very quickly just trying to pick them up with a fine detail brush, very carefully not to paint anything else. And this is a very bright silver, it looks pretty good. Next I'm going to use Retributor armor, and with this color I'm going to pick up all of the places that are going to be gold, and they're scattered around the model here and there. Just take your time and try to spot them all, and give them a good base coat with this color. One thing that I forgot to mention, the skulls on the chains here in the back and on the end of the staff are painted the same way that I painted the parchment. Just follow the same steps and try to use the highlights as the same colors as the parchment. Next, I'm going to use Reikland Flesh Shade once all of the gold details are painted. Very carefully, because some of them are very delicate and it's easy to paint on other places. I'm going to wash them with this color. And here I use too much on that area, but try not to use too much that it overflows to other areas, but enough that it goes into the crevices of the gold and give these a little bit of a shadow. Next, I'm going to use Liberator Gold and make sure to vigorously shake this color because it separates a lot and it's very difficult to see a difference between these two colors. They're pretty close, but they're different, and once you use the shade, they're going to be a little bit more different, so the highlight's gonna look pretty good and a little bit more silver-ish than yellow, and it looks pretty good. This is just an edge highlight on all of the gold parts of this miniature. Next, I'm using Mephiston Red, and with this color I'm going to base coat all of the jewels around the model. You can just leave them as it is, but I'm going to paint them red, and I'm going to pick them up, all of them individually, just try to find them all and paint them with this color. Once it's done, I'm going to give them a little shade with Nuln oil, and this is necessary because the Mephiston Red looks a little bit too bright and you need a little bit of a darker color on the background of the gems. I used a little bit too much in this little eye on the end of the staff. You don't need that much, you just need to tint it and let it flow into the surroundings of the gem to give them a shadow. Here I'm using Troll Slayer Orange, and with this color I'm just going to pick up the bottom parts of the gems. Just try to paint the bottom edge of all of the gems like so. And we're going to start building up a highlight for this jewels. Next I'm going to use Flash Gits Yellow, and with this color I'm going to pick up the bottom parts of the gems again, but just a smaller area on the very bottom of the gems real quick. Once it's done, I'm going to use white, and this is model color white again, and I'm just going to put a little dot on the top parts of the jewels, on the upper parts of the jewels where the light would shine, and this makes a really cool effect of gem when you're trying to paint gems around models. This looks pretty good. For the staff, I'm going to just do one highlight with Baneblade Brown. Very carefully try to pick all of these raised areas on the staff and don't mess it up like I did there. If you did, just go ahead and use Rhino's hide and clean them up and try again. Once that's done, I'm going to use Sotek Green, and with this color I'm going to base coat the feathers on the staff. And this is one of the final steps. We just need to finish the decoration on the end of the staff and we're done. This is fun as well. I'm going to use Warpstone Glow, and this color is going to go into the roots of the feathers. You don't really need to blend them or anything. The shading that I'm going to do afterwards is going to blend them, and they're pretty close together. They're pretty close on brightness, so they don't need a lot of blending to look good. Here I'm using Genestealer Purple, and this is going to go towards the tips of the feathers. Just try to pick them up and give them a little bit of this color. It's not necessary to blend, they look pretty close on brightness, so the wash is going to blend them for us. For that I'm going to use Coelia Greenshade, and this is going to tint them all a little bit green and make the feathers a little bit darker. And the purple is going to look a little bit more purple, and I'm going to try to concentrate on the recesses. Although I'm washing most of the area of these feathers, I'm trying to not use a lot of it. Try to concentrate on just the deepest recesses of the feathers. Next, I'm using Skarsnik Green, and with this color I'm going to edge highlight all of the edges of the feathers. This is a very bright, a little bit muted, bright green. It looks pretty good, and I think it's pretty close to what you see on the box. And at the end, I'm pretty happy with the way the feathers turned out. so I would recommend using these colors too. Next I'm going to use Mephiston red, and this is going to be the first color of the snake, the kind of snaky little fish on the top of the staff. It has a fish head, but it looks like a snake, so I don't know what it is. This is going to just paint the bottom part of the snake, just the little area that I painted, and followed by pink horror, and this I'm going to use it for the next section of the snake real quickly. The next section is going to be Genestealer purple, and I'm going to paint this place here. It's better that you see where I'm painting instead of trying to describe it verbally. And the final section is going to be painted with Caledor sky. Again, you don't need to blend them very well because I'm going to shade them, and this is going to bring them together. If you want to spend some time blending, that's fine, but it's not going to be very different. Once it's done, I'm going to wash all these colors with Drakenhof Nightshade, including the red. This is going to darken them down. It's going to look a little bit more purple and closer to what you see on the box art. So I'm going to do this. The Genestealer purple ends up looking a lot darker, and that's good. Once it's done, I'm going to use Lothern blue, and with this color I'm going to edge highlight the last two sections that I painted with blue and purple, and just trying to find the edges and all of the scales. Just try to highlight the little bumps that are the scales, and all of the little details that you see, just try to pick them up with this color. And the other two areas I'm going to use Ungor flesh, and with this color I'm going to do the same thing, but just for the pink horror and the Mephiston red. Try to highlight them with this color, those two areas. And that's pretty much it. This is all that I did for this model. And this is the finished model. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I'm very happy with the way the staff looks. If anything, this tutorial, it's a very good guide to do the staff and of course most of the area. I'm very happy with the way my changeling looks, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Even though it has a lot of steps and it's a fairly lengthy process to paint this character, as most characters should take a little bit of time to paint, it's surprisingly easy to do. It doesn't involve a lot of blending, a lot of very complicated steps. This is pretty simple. I kept it pretty simple, and it looks pretty effective in my opinion. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it entertaining and helpful. And if you did, please like the video, comment on it, and subscribe to the channel, as this helps me out. And I would really like to have a successful channel, and those things really help. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you would like me to paint next, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching. You stayed. Great! Thank you very much for supporting my channel, and if you would like to become a patron, there is a link to my Patreon page in the description below. Your contributions help pay for my work and keeps the channel going. A single $1 a month is more than enough, and you can cancel at any time. If you can't, don't worry, you can support my channel by simply watching my videos and sharing them with your friends. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.